founding winemaker and CEO of the legendary Domaine Carneros, and this wonderful place is considered by many to be the premier sparkling wine and estate Pinot Noir house in America. And Eileen has graciously agreed to serve as honorary chairwoman of the 4th Annual National Women's Wine Competition. So, Eileen, I wanted to thank you for spending time with us today. I want to give our entrants and wine lovers an opportunity to hear some of your thoughts on your career, on the trajectory, your perceptions of the trajectory of marketing sparkling wine in America, and also your ideas about getting started in the industry. So, my first question is, how did you make that leap, that first leap from master's in nutrition and your formal training at the Culinary Institute of America into becoming a winemaker? I haven't read anything that tells me, you know, how you made that step. You seem to have successfully avoided the UC Davis track.
Well, through no fault of my own. My father actually was very interested in wines, and he inspired me from about the time I was 8, and we would have this little conversation on Sunday evening about what wine we were going to have for dinner, and he'd let me taste. So I've been interested in wines, and I probably would have gone into wines right away, except I grew up in New Jersey, and it was inconceivable. It was not a career opportunity for me at that time. Women in those days were librarians or teachers or secretaries, so winemaking was not on the agenda. So I had a couple of other careers. I did social work in Venezuela, came home, had become very interested in nutrition, did a master's degree at the University of Connecticut, and taught for them for a couple of years, and then took a summer off and went to the culinary. It's a 10-week program. It was the prototype, really, for what's eventually happened up at the CIA in St. Helena. And while I was at the CIA, I met a man, a real-life winemaker, named Eric Miller, who said there's a place in California called Davis where you can study winemaking. And I knew when he said that was for me. So I actually packed my Impala, drove across country, landed in Davis, and went and talked to a professor. And he said to me, well, you'd have to do an undergraduate degree because you don't have a science undergraduate degree. You'd have to do another master's. And he said, the reality is nobody will hire you because the starting positions in winemaking require doing barrel work, and you won't be able to do that. He said, why don't I set up an appointment for you over in the nutrition department so you can talk to them about a PhD? And I said, thank you very much, but I am going to be a winemaker. And he said, well, I don't think so, but let me introduce you to a new faculty member we have just joining the staff named Ann Noble. So he called over, and Ann said she would talk to me. And Ann and I chatted for about half an hour, and she said to me, you don't need another degree. You've already got a degree in a science. You need to come and take a few classes at Davis and convince somebody you can do it. And that's exactly what I did. I took classes at Davis for 4 months, 2 quarters. It was a successful move to Davis. I actually, the first week I was there, met the man I'm married to, 32 years later still. And I took classes and then started actually as a tour guide part-time at Chandon. I almost starved that summer on, I think, 16 hours a week, but it got my foot in the door, and they lost their pastry chef, and I went downstairs to help in the pastry kitchen, and then the original winemaker at Chandon had left, and I was asked if I'd like to work in the lab, and of course that was just the break I was looking for. So it just was sort of moving from place to place, being at maybe the right place at the right time. When I talk to women in mentoring situations, I often suggest that they find wineries that are either startups or wineries that are undergoing change, because there'll often be some movement of people in and out in those situations, and you can move up the ranks a little faster. Also, I think if you're looking at an established winery, it makes sense to at least look and see if they have women in positions of authority. Because if there are women who are being promoted, that's a good sign. Often I'm asked how I chose sparkling wine. What was it that made me think sparkling wine? And while I've never run into a well-made wine that I didn't enjoy, sparkling wine is kind of what makes my heart sing. I've always loved sparkling wine. I fell in love the first time over a bottle of champagne and, strangely enough, filet mignon. I can't promise the same results to everybody, but it's always worth a try. But it's the wine, and when I was at home in New Jersey, it was the thing that people brought out for, for celebrations. But it didn't have to be a big celebration. It was often that my mother and father enjoyed a glass on Friday night, and I still say, celebrate the weekend, start the weekend with a glass of sparkling wine, and that's something that I do every week. So sparkling wine was my first wine of choice. My second wine of choice actually has always been Pinot Noir. So it was kind of a natural extension, also because, of course, for our fine sparkling wines, we use Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So it was fun to play with Pinot Noir as a red wine, and as winemakers do like to play on occasion.
Yeah, I've noticed that every good winemaker has a special project hidden in the back, and that's the really interesting sort of stuff. I mean, the rest of it's very interesting too, but it's that little project they've got hidden back, whether it's a port or something like, a special bottle of Pinot, and they all have one. So
we all have one, and the reason we all have one is it's because even though it's not the product maybe that your winery is known for, or it's kind of out of the main track of what you normally do, you always learn from the special projects, and learning is an incredibly important part of being successful in any field and staying there. One of my favorite quotes comes from Will Rogers: even if you're on the right track, if you're just sitting there, you'll get run over.
It's very good. What has it been like working with Tattinger, and more recently, of course, Starwood? How did the French connection inform your winemaking style and philosophy from Chandon to now?
Well, I went through, as one starts in the field, when I started at Chandon, I learned the basics, and luckily I met a man there who was the old chef de coeur of Champagne Ruinart, who encouraged me to develop my own style and to think about style. The Ruinart style was very different from what my style is today, but he was kind of my great mentor, my inspiration. And then I really had an opportunity to play with style when the first 3 years I was at Gloria Ferrer, and the Ferrer group really had offered nothing as far as stylistic direction. They even said, when I asked what grapes they wanted me to use, they just said, whatever you think. So I really had a very, very free hand to do play stylistically or to study stylistically there, which I did. And by the time I came here, I was 9 or 10 years in the industry, I really had a stylistic bent. And that stylistic bent is balance, elegance. I often say think of Audrey Hepburn in the little black dress, every part put together perfectly, and yet fun and kicky, wry, witty, that it's playful. And so that's what I look for, is that balance, that elegance, but something that enhances celebration. Certainly not too serious, but why would one want a serious sparkling wine? But it's something that has all the elements of a great wine, and yet overflows with festivity factor.